The rupee hits a fresh record low for the fourth straight day. $1 is now worth nearly 80 rupees. All emerging market currencies under pressure as dollar index continues to surge. Trade deficit rises to $26.1 billion in June as imports surge to 57.6%. Refined petroleum imports almost doubled to $21 billion in June, while coal imports have shot up by 260%. Choppy day on Dalal Street. Sensex and Nifty closed nearly flat as IT stocks cap index gains. Oil and gas, power stocks rise. Global crude oil prices fall well below $100 a barrel as inflation worries take center stage. Brent crude hits 3-month lows. Back home, the government in Maharashtra cuts VAT on petrol by 5 rupees per litre and diesel by 3 per litre. India's wholesale inflation eases to 15.18% in June, but remains in double digits for the 15th consecutive month. The high rate of inflation is primarily due to a rise in prices of mineral oils, food articles, crude and metals. Former NSE, MD and CEO Chitra Ramakrishna arrested as Enforcement Directorate steps up its money laundering probe in the NSE co-location scam. FIR also filed against former Mumbai Police Commissioner Sanjay Pandey, case related to illegal phone tapping of NSE employees. Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman stresses on the need for sustainable development goals at the G20 Finance Ministers meet in Bali, Indonesia. Also seeks a fair and transparent global tax system which will not hurt the interests of developing nations. It's another day, another low for the Indian rupee. The currency has hit a fresh low of 79.8 against the dollar for the fourth straight day now, as the greenback held near 2-decade highs. The rupee has slumped to a new record low level 26 times since Russia invaded Ukraine late in February. Foreign exchange analysts believe that the rupee could breach the psychologically key level of 80 to the dollar very soon. Market sentiments are hurt as red-hot inflation in the US has stoked bets that the Fed may have to raise interest rates much more than expected, even up to 100 basis points. However, all eyes will now be on the ECB meeting lined up next week that will provide further cues about the rupee-dollar exchange rate. As petrol and diesel prices continue to remain frozen for over 3 months now, sources have told Business Today TV that oil marketing companies have reached out to the government seeking permission to increase retail prices. With the weakening rupee, the losses per litre that oil marketing companies are facing are on the verge of rising further. Chetan Bhutani joins us with more details on that story. Chetan, what are some of the big concerns of oil producers and what is it that they're seeking?
Well, Amal correctly pointed out that the prices for petrol and diesel have been frozen in the last 3 months, which has really been cause of concern for the oil marketing companies. Because remember, per litre, they have to face losses to the tune of about 16 to 18 rupees per litre on petrol and 23 to 25 rupees per litre on diesel, which really means that the oil marketing companies have to absorb that shock of increasing crude prices, whereas they have to not change the prices. However, our sources in the government have told us that the oil marketing companies have reached out to the government seeking finance ministry's intervention to increase, in fact, to allow them to increase prices of petrol and diesel at the petrol pumps. However, the government is not in the mood to increase prices as of now, as what our sources are telling us. So in times to come, we can expect that the prices of diesel could be increased because with the rupee further weakening, as you correctly pointed out earlier, that rupee 79.80 to a dollar, the oil marketing companies are on the verge of getting more losses. And there will be a point later on when they will not be able to absorb such a price hike. And they will eventually start to report losses. So clearly in times to come, the government will have to take some action or announce some subsidy measures to ensure that the oil marketing companies remain under the same cushion.
All right, Chetan, thanks so much for joining us with all the latest on that front. The recent crypto crash has spelled trouble not just for investors, but also for leading crypto firms. Leading crypto companies like Coinbase, Vault, BlockFi, etc. are restructuring term sheets, while others like Celsius and 3AC have already filed for bankruptcy. Interestingly, Celsius has managed to pay off all of its dues to decentralized finance investors, but has left over 1 million retail investors hanging dry. Let's go across to Akanksha Ramchaturvedi for more on this. Akanksha, take us through all the brutal details of what's really taking place in the crypto world.
That's right. The recent crypto crash has not been heavy just for investors, but also for crypto companies. Leading crypto companies like Coinbase, BlockFi, Vault have all started restructuring their term sheets, while companies like 3AC and Celsius have already filed for bankruptcy. Interestingly, Celsius was able to pay off millions of dollars to its DeFi investors, but left millions of retail investors hanging dry. It just seems like the governments and regulatory bodies were right to worry and caution investors about the risks of cryptocurrencies.
In the light of a situation like this, were governments right to express caution and be wary of cryptocurrencies? Let's welcome Charles Tan, Chief Marketing Officer at Tata, and Sharat Chandra, crypto markets commentator, both joining us on the show today. Charles, let me start off with you. What happened at 3AC?
Wow, hi. Thanks for having me over here. It's actually kind of hard to start, but we can probably speculate that 3AC's troubles, right, started from the Terra dive spiral, okay, which itself didn't affect 3AC that much, but more on the domino effect, which spooked the markets, causing a sell-off, and then tanked the price of crypto in general. So this affected their ability to repay some of the loans to Celsius and other lenders, so they were unable to meet the margin costs.
Okay, sure. Sharat, what about Celsius? Now, they paid off loans to most of the DeFi lenders before filing for bankruptcy. But what about retail investors?
All right. So if you look at the process of bankruptcies, right, so mostly secured creditors, they get their due first, then followed by the consumers, right? And in this particular case, the consumer liability has to establish. And if investors can establish that, then their rights might take precedence over secured creditors. If I can draw a parallel between what happens in India, and if I can maybe quote the Yes Bank case, where consumers or retail depositors were able to assert their rights in terms of getting their due first. So, but in absence of any regulation, I don't know how this will play out and how this will intersect with the existing bankruptcy laws over there in US.
Okay. So, Charles, how are VCs responding to the collapse of several crypto companies, whether it's Terraform, 3AC, Celsius, Vault? What's the outlook looking like now?
Well, the outlook, as a startup ourselves as Tata, right, we do interact with VCs and investors. The general sentiment that we are still seeing is that VCs are more cautious, but still open to investing, right? UST is not the first stable coin to enter a death spiral. We don't think it will be the last. Something similar happened last year with Iron Finance, so it's not new to the VCs. I wouldn't call the situation affecting Celsius or Vault collapse, because if you look at the affected lenders like BlockFi, Vault, they are actually quite established in terms of a business model, foundations, having mature users. They would probably have their financial backers trying to manage the situation, okay, broker some acquisition behind. So one theme that we see from a startup perspective in the crypto space is that VCs are still very, very active in the market, but they are focusing more on a product with strong infrastructure. It's like for us, we'll be releasing some good news soon as well. So I would say that the VCs, they are still very positive, but slightly more cautious.
With the global economy in doldrums, companies across the world are either laying off people or slowing down hiring. Tech giants have already announced their plans to hit brakes on hiring. Back home, unemployment has surged, but it seems India Inc. intends to continue hiring at this point of time. To talk more about this, Rituparna Chakrabarti joining us from Teamlease. Rituparna, let me get a take from you on the current situation and really where India stands in terms of the trend. We've been seeing all these headlines from the US and from some very large companies, of course, but what's happening back home?
So I guess it's important for us to all calm down and take a long view on the situation. Yes, there are a lot of disturbing news and headwinds that we are hearing about what's happening in the US, the decision of the Fed, the war, and so on and so forth. But I can confidently tell you that there is definitely a steady improvement in hiring outlook.
Okay.
There is optimism. To say whether people are going berserk in terms of hiring the way maybe the nostalgia of the past before COVID, I don't think that's essentially that kind of comparison is needed.
Yeah.
But in our latest employment outlook report, it clearly talks about the fact that in the last 7 quarters, this is probably the best outlook that we have seen. And there is no reason for us to actually believe that the outlook is going to change in the next 3 months for sure. Also, I have to remind you that I know there is a lot of talk which happens around technology, but to be honest, this outlook is spread across multiple sectors. So it's not just technology led. I know technology makes it into the news, everybody's attention's in technology, but I think there is a steady improvement in outlook across beyond technology, whether it's in the education services sector. E-commerce has remained steady, healthcare and pharma has remained steady, telecom, the entire lot. I can run down the list: retail, FMCG, KPO, financial services. So there is definitely a positive momentum, and hence it would be too premature for us to kind of declare that there is going to be this doom and gloom, scenario coming up. No, I don't think that's likely to happen. And I think one of the steady indicators of that is attrition. Attrition actually is a great indicator for us to know what's going on in the economy. When attrition goes up, it's an implicit indicator of course, the hiring outlook improving. But side by side, it's also, of course, is an indication of demand exceeding supply and the availability of skill set. Now, coming to the most talked about topic, technology. Technology, even if, our recent study shows that the attrition level is almost 22-23%. So even if organizations are hiring to just replenish their attrition, there is a steady state hiring that is required to kind of just forget about the new roles and job roles, just to replenish the attrition. So I guess I guess it's of course what will happen in the long run in 6 months if something absolutely unpredictable happens. One can't say much, but I think it's too premature for us to declare that there is a hiring dip or there is going to be a negative outlook. We should be watchful. I think if something COVID has taught us is to be careful, to be watchful, to not go, to the extreme level of hiring, which is beyond our control. All of that, we all know. Those lessons are there. But I don't think there is doom and gloom yet on the hiring outlook.
All right, Rituparna, we'll leave it there. Thanks for chatting with us. Great getting a sense of the trends and, what's really happening, the pulse of India Inc. right now and its growth trajectory. The world's largest coffee chain is going desi. In mood for a simmering cup of masala chai or filter coffee? Well, you can now head to Starbucks for the same. In a bid to woo Indian customers, the company has expanded its menu to include sandwiches, milkshakes, bite-sized snacks. I spoke to Sushant Dash, CEO of Tata Starbucks, earlier today. Listen in to an excerpt of that conversation.
How is it taking over, a behemoth in the coffee industry, in the coffee shop space? Starbucks, when it first launched, had really ambitious plans to change behavior in the Indian market and expand extremely rapidly. As you come in and take over, where do you feel it currently stands in the Indian market, and what will your ambitions be?
Today, we are there not just in the metros, but in 30 cities across the country. So I think when you ask about whether we have managed to establish the Starbucks brand and expand rapidly, I think nothing says that better than the fact that today we are successful across 30 cities of the country. Not just tier 1, but even tier 2 cities, even the smaller markets. We are present in markets like Siliguri, Cochin, Calicut, Bhubaneswar, you name it, and we are there. And I think that's what it means.
The assumption always was that, while premium and aspirational, Starbucks would always be a touch too expensive for some of these markets. And, now that there's a lot of competition, existing brands of your, yes, but also a lot of newer, younger brands that are coming into the tea and coffee space or the sort of coffee shop and, quick dining space, that it's going to get even more challenging. Would you agree, or would you say that you have a definitive edge and you're well on track?
Our view is, that there is a lot of space. There's a lot of headroom in terms of growth. If I, and all of us know this, if I look at the Indian beverage consumption space, tea is 91% in terms of penetration when it comes to households. Coffee is 11%, even including South, where coffee drinking is quite common. So in terms of the headroom to grow, and even in terms of the way we see the food and beverage industry going, in terms of people spending it out of home, I think there is a lot of space for everyone to grow. So I think in some ways competition is good. It will only grow the category. I think as far as we are concerned, we are very confident in terms of what we bring to the table, in terms of our coffee expertise, in terms of coffee from all regions, coffee growing regions, in terms of the best Arabica, top 3%, the craftsmanship and the warmth and the connection. So for us, as long as we continue to do what we are good at and what we stand for, the Starbucks experience, I think we should be good.
Okay, talk to us about the new menu, because that's the one that's been making all the headlines of late. A lot of excitement, and I think it's about time as well, even if I say so myself.
So it's not just about the menu. I would actually like to go back a little and give you a little bit of a background in terms of what we are trying to do. I think this actually, in some ways, is the next phase of our growth. I think the last 10 years has been about establishing the Starbucks experience, the brand, and I think we have done a good job with it. So today, if I go to the consumer knows Starbucks as a coffee expert, Starbucks as a place where they can go and relax, aspirational, international. I think this is the next stage in terms of getting the next set of consumers. So we are doing multiple things. First is a launch of 3 new beverage segments. So we are launching filter coffee, we are launching Masala Chai and cardamom chai, which is Indian, and we are launching milkshakes. We are launching a new size, which is what we call as the Pico, which is 180 ml, and we are launching a whole range of food. And the food is, again, divided into different subsegments, more like bite-sized, shareable. And the idea behind all of this is that we realize that while we are satisfying a lot of what our current consumers want, but for the new consumers, we need to give something more. There are a lot of consumers, or there are also many occasions when people come into Starbucks and they find that maybe they wanted an Indian masala chai, or they wanted a filter coffee. Or we see sometimes families come in together, let's say on a Sunday, weekends, and there are kids. And many Indian families don't want to give tea or coffee to the kids, which is why milkshake. Similarly, if you look at the food, there are many a times our portion sizes, you are sitting in a Starbucks, so you can well imagine the portion sizes are quite big in our case. One of the things that the consumers came back to us and said was that if I go to a Starbucks and I'm between meals and I'm looking for something light to go with my coffee, you don't have bite-sized articles. So that is why the food menu now has bite-sized, or if you're going out with your colleagues or your friends, you want something that is shareable. You want one item which you can all share. So there is a whole range of shareables. So that's the thought process.
All right, let's take a very quick break on that note. We'll be back for more on the other side.
Make your media plan smarter with India Today Live TV on your connected devices.
You are watching India Today.
Welcome back. The Enforcement Directorate has arrested former National Stock Exchange MD and CEO Chitra Ramakrishna. The former top honcho of NSE was already in CBI custody and is currently lodged in Delhi's Tihar jail after being made and accused in the co-location scam and other irregularities in the exchange. The ED is probing the money laundering angle in the case. Earlier in the day, the agency had filed enforcement case information reports or ECIRs against Ramakrishna and former Mumbai Police Commissioner Sanjay Pandey. Filing an income tax return can be a tedious process. From choosing the right form to the right assessment year, challenges could be many. But when following a step-by-step process, it becomes a lot easier and less cumbersome. My colleague Sakshi Batra standing by with a step-by-step guide for you to file your ITRs.
Well, that's right. It's that time of the year when taxpayers are running helter-skelter to find their Form 16, look for a CA, find out ways to save taxes, file the cumbersome ITR or the income tax return. While difficult and tedious as it may sound, we have collated a step-by-step guide speaking to our experts to help you really, file or process the e-filing of the ITR, which you can actually do on your own as well, and the common mistakes that you should be aware of and avoid this season. So for online filing of your ITR, the step 1 is to visit the official income tax e-filing portal. Step 2 is to register if you're a new user or log in if you are an existing user and then enter your login ID, which is your PAN, and the password that you already have as a registered user. In step 3, now you will need to navigate to file and then click on file income tax return. In step 4, you should choose the applicable assessment year and the ITR form as per your eligibility and then select the submission mode as prepare and submit online to then proceed. The next step will actually ask you the reason for filing the return. Make sure to check and put the right reason right there. Step 6 is in case you have already filed an ITR before, it will prompt you to select the details that you already want to be pre-filled. Now in step 7, you will be directed to a new page to fill in a form in which a lot of information is already pre-filled. Make sure to check all those details which are auto-filled. Next, you are required to match your incomes with forms 26AS and AIS. For instance, salary income can be matched with Form 16 and AIS. Capital gains income can be matched with Forms 26AS and AIS. In step 9, you will need to calculate the tax payable to recheck all the details before submitting the form. If all the details are correct, then you should click on preview and submit. In step 10, you have to complete the verification process, either by Aadhaar OTP or electronic verification code or EVC through the details of the bank account. In step 11, for final submission, type OTP or EVC, send to your registered mobile number and upload the ITR. Lastly, after submitting the return, the Income Tax Department will then process the return and will also notify you regarding the same via mail or message to your registered number.
Thank you so much for that, Sakshi. Apple refers to the MacBook Air as the world's best-selling laptop, and its in-house M1 chip made it the most powerful as well. But last month, they launched the MacBook Air with a new and improved M2. The supercharged laptop is exclusively on Tech Today. Is it worth the upgrade? Here's what our tech editor, Ayush Elavadi, has to say.
I'm your host, Ayush Elavadi. This is Tech Today, and now it's time for an exclusive unboxing of a product you've all been waiting for. The M2 MacBook Air, here on Tech Today. Let's unbox it. Let's get to this particular device. If you open it up, it is a slightly bigger display technically, because what they've done with the bezels is that they've given you now a 13.6-inch display, so it's a lot more vivid, 500 nits of brightness, and boy, there's a lot more under the hood as well. This is a 256 gig version. This comes in with a much better camera. For those of us working from home, this now has a 1080p FaceTime HD camera. What's also interesting about this product is that it's quite light. Now, the new M2 MacBook Air also comes with improved sound and a better microphone as well. It comes with a new quad speaker setup, which is quite neatly tucked in out there on the sides, and a triple mic array with beam-forming audio. If you want the new design, it looks great, the new colors, a new sound system, a 1080p FaceTime camera, this comes with 720p, and of course the M2 chipset versus the M1 chipset. Slightly more technical things as memory and stuff have also been upgraded, and a slightly better display at 13.6 inches with 500 nits of brightness. That 500 nits is a crucial figure because it's a lot brighter than the M1 in practice. Then you should go for the new M2 MacBook Air. But if you want to save some extra bucks, then the M1 does it all. So I think that would make it a lot easier. But they call this one of the world's fastest selling laptops, the MacBook Air range. And honestly, I think the M2 will also soon become the fastest selling laptop or the highest selling laptop in the world.
And that's where we leave it on the show tonight. Thanks for watching.